Hi, welcome to the Rotary E-Club of Silicon Valley, where every week we try to inspire you with stories about service, particularly in the realm of innovation, education, and entrepreneurship. I am Andrew Taw, the president-elect of this E-Club. Before I introduce this week's speaker, I'd like to introduce our members on this call, starting from my left. We have Monique, who is now Dr. Monique from Palo Alto. She's the library director out there. We have Cecilia Babkirk, who is the mortgage specialist down in Fremont. Raquel and Chris switch places. Raquel, who is the medical doctor, and she is currently in Chicago working towards well, it's a project to come, but there's an award leader thing that she's doing down there. And Chris, who works in media production, and he is from about 40 minutes outside of Ottawa. And this week, our speaker is Jarrell Lowe. Jarrell has created his stage to deliver the art of divine resilience through words to support youth development and encourage civic engagement. He developed his passion and fine-tuned his purpose by working in education for the past 6 years. His focus is building tomorrow's successors through small and individual mentoring programs, speaking engagements, and seminars. And without further ado, here is Jarrell Lowe.
Hello, everyone. Can you guys hear me? Yes, perfect. First off, thank you, Andrew, for having me. Thank you guys for taking a moment out to just share this passion with me. And today we're just going to focus on education. The one thing that I wanted to present is the possibility of rethinking schools. So bear with me. I'm very passionate about public education. I am a product of public education, and I believe in taking chances with our students in public education. But the problem with public education, just to give you a little background, I work for Oakland Unified School District. This is my 6th year. Oakland Unified School District is compiled of about 49,000 students. And we're dealing with a lot of outside stressors, you know, community problems that pour over into the campus, lack of, at risk of, students with recidivism, high recidivism rate, students that teen pregnancy, drug abuse, you know, the list goes on. But we cannot count these students as incorrigible. I am a true believer that these students, my students, just need to have us as leaders rethink schools. So in order to rethink schools, I wanted to just give you a little bit of background. I wanted to talk about the E2 model, which is the engagement and enhancement model that I created. But before we can get there, I want to talk about what the disconnect in the classroom is, what the disconnect on campus is, and where we are struggling to meet the school-wide expectations and why are students not engaged in that process. We have to understand that education does not take place through a vacuum. And what I'm merely saying is we cannot have the expectation for students at risk of multiple things to be able to come sit down in a classroom chair for 90 minutes and be able to absorb all this information through a one-way communication of the instructor, and to be able to perform on tests or whatever expectations there may be. In working in this field, what I've realized and learned over the course of these last few years is, you know, a lot of studies reference Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Maslow's hierarchy of needs, even in my study, just as a brief plug, I am in the last class of my master's program. So hopefully you guys send those good thoughts to me, because I'm going to be working on the data portion of my thesis, and I'm hoping to be done by December. But just really building on that point of Maslow provided that hierarchy as an understanding of development. But I think the disconnect with that development is our students in urban education or in urban communities are in survival mode. So when we think about students in survival mode, we're thinking about basic needs being met. And so when I reference Maslow's hierarchy of needs, I'm more or less just stating that our students aren't able to get past, you know, the physiological stage. We can possibly, you know, get through that. But the safety stage is the stage that I want to highlight. Student safety needs aren't being met. And right now, the struggle we're having on campuses is the understanding of why students sleep so much in classrooms, why students come for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, but don't come to learn. Well, we have to back ourselves up to really understand that the school is a safe place and considered to where some of the students are growing up at. You know, Oakland in 2011 was rated number 9, high crime cities. It was published through a Forbes article. And I would like to contest that and say that Oakland is a beautiful city. So if you ever get a chance to come out and visit it, it's beautiful, arts, crafts, and a ton of things going on. So I don't really believe in the ratings of the city, but we have to understand that the violence is high. Students are coming from single parent homes, and the at-risk is multiple items that are aligned. So back to my point. When we look at that scope and we understand students in survival mode, we can't have an expectation for them to master self in any capacity, because they're in the day-to-day process of, how do I get a meal? How do I feed my brother and sister? How do I get to a place where I feel safe enough to take a nap? It's bad that schools have become this point, but the process is, since measures aren't being met or the funding's allocated for a certain group of students, we are now changing high school expectations it's a nonverbal statement, but I am a firm believer that high schools are now being changed to local triages, to say, for lack of better terms. And when I reference it as a local triage, I'm more or less just saying that we get them, we assess them, and then we push them on. And part of education from what I was growing up, oh man, I referenced some of my teachers. And just to share with you guys, I am a bigger guy. So I referenced a teacher in kindergarten, Miss Gaines. And what Miss Gaines gave to me was that love, compelling compassion, that drill. I care about you so much that I need you to care about yourself the way I care about you. I'm giving you 100%, but you don't give yourself 75%. So it's never going to work out. So that understanding, as I went through education in the Oakland Unified School District, I realized, you know what? I need to take a chance on myself because Miss Gaines cared. And when I say rethinking schools, I'm more or less saying we need to back off the Common Core standards, back off of, I think we continue to push linked learning. We continue to encourage students lifelong learning, but we need to be understanding of, how do we build analytical thinkers? You know, we don't want them to be combative, but we want them to do the research. We want them to be able to back up their statements with data and understand that's the process of life, and more importantly, preparing for college and or career. So the flaws in education is those, to reiterate, is high schools being treated as a local triage. We don't build relationships. We're just assessing and shipping to the next department. Linked learning and civic engagement not being a priority. I am a firm believer that we need to teach students how to be citizens. We need to teach them how to care about their communities and be valuable members in their community. Our focus is to train staff on awareness versus competency. And this is a big struggle because awareness only gets us in trouble, us being the adults on campus. Competency requires us to become a member of the community. And what I do is, as a case manager at Oakland High School, I have become so embedded into the community that when the students see me at the local grocery store, at the local gas station, they have an understanding of who Jarrell is on campus and what he's going to bring, even if I see him off campus. The bad part of that is my job is 8 to 4, and 4 p.m. to 10 p.m. at night. I have to be a role model even when I don't want to be one sometimes. But that's the part of education that it takes. It takes a village. And we all have to be committed to that. Oh, excuse me. What we really research has shown is that creating smaller learning communities on larger campuses is built into one of those, I think it was, I'm gonna forget his name. I think it was Malcolm Gladwell and Tipping Point that referenced the 150 rule. And what we're noticing is smaller communities on campus help students to become more intimate, more engaged, more involved, outspoken. And this is the encouragement that we want to have. Is we understand we have after school resources. We understand we have sports. and clubs. But what about academies? Let's create academies on campus so students in ninth grade can say, you know what? I'm interested in public health. I'm interested in visual arts. I'm interested in engineering. So they can identify with that and use high school as the experience to prepare for college. Lastly, I made a statement that education doesn't take place through a vacuum. And that's more or less just a statement saying that we have the expectation of students in survival mode to come into a classroom, conform to laws or rules or classroom agreements, and be able to comply with students that have a two-parent home, with students that were fed breakfast, lunch, and dinner at home. So the expectation is not to get fed. And you know what? There is a lot of drug abuse. But I'm not saying to cripple the students. I just say we need to figure out a different way to address the students. Our engagement with the students cannot be through disciplinary actions because they tune that off. We need to engage them, encourage them, and work with them. And moving into the E2 model, I wanted to just share, I created a model in my study because my principal asked, how do you engage with parents so well? Jarrell, you have parents come to campus every day. They come to you to communicate. They come to you when they have problems. And even if they're not your students, families come to you to work. And I told my principal, I am a firm believer that parents' presence on campus is more powerful than their voice through the phone. So the more I can get them a part of their child's educational process, then we can all be educated on how to support the young man or the young lady in this stage of their life. The E2 model consists of 6 stages. And, you know, just for time purposes, I'll just keep it short and really just give you a brief example of those stages. The first stage is engaging the student. The second stage is the relationship building. Third stage is adaptability. We'll talk about that. Fourth is maintenance. And fifth is to enhance the student. So let's just go back to stage 1. And before we start, I just want you guys to know, don't think as when I say E2, I'm just merely saying the engagement and enhancement model. Don't think of the E2 model as a linear, we're trying to get the students to an endpoint. It is not that. My work is based on a continuum. We are always recycling. We are always coming back to the starting point. And even if we enhance them and they're in the career or they're in college, the process starts back over with engaging them all over because they're at a different point in their lives, dealing with different challenges, which each stage is viable as we go through that with them. So when I talk about engaging stage 1, and I make this presentation to teachers, I share with teachers all the time that when I say engage, or when we talk about engagement, we think about engagement in social realms when we have our friends and we go out and grab a beer and we're asking questions and, hey, how's your wife doing? How's your boyfriend doing? You know, how are these things doing? But we have to understand that we have common language, we have common values. Those are the friends that we typically associate with because we have some similarities. But with our students, we have to understand we have to meet them where they're at, not where we want them to be. And so for us to meet them where they're at, we have to understand that they're in survival mode. So for us to engage a student, we have to go to their location. We have to go to their community. We have to go to their home and work with them at that level until we can get to the point where they're at school every day on time, have an understanding and a value for time management, how to be disciplined, how to engage with other students on campus. Relationship building. This is a challenging subject, or this is a challenging piece in E2. And just last week, I had a presentation at Castlemont High School, which is another high school in Oakland. When we talk about relationship building, I'm going to share these terms, and I hope it comes across right. In the process of going after your girlfriend or boyfriend, wife or husband, there's a courting process that takes place. And I'm a firm believer that within relationship building, there's a courting process. There's a chance where there's going to be, I have to go a little further than I want to, but I want the student to know that I'm here for them and just who they are, not who I'm expecting them to be. So that relationship building process is very vital. It's very sensitive also because a lot of our students have seen so many therapists, have seen so many clinicians, have lost so many family members, absentee parents, that it's hard for them to build real relationships. And we can't put a timetable on when that process or how long this stage lasts. So just understand that relationship building is kind of that courting process. It's going to be a lot of back and forth. It's going to be a lot of, hey, I got to go a little further than I want to. But if we're really in this to build tomorrow's successors, to build them to who they're supposed to be, it's going to take a lot of time on our hands. Adaptability. Well, you know, sometimes when we get involved in our work, we start, we have expectations. And sometimes when those expectations are met, we kind of get upset. And in these last few years, I've learned to expect less of my students. Not that I don't expect them to go to college, but that adaptability is a lot of tug and pull, push, pull, because students, when they become uncomfortable, they go back into their safe places. When they become uncomfortable with what's being presented or the environment that's being developed or the relationship that's building, what we sometimes classify as self-sabotaging or self-imploding, students are not comfortable in that arena. So adaptability is where we receive a lot of fallout, and you have to come back in at engaging that student to let them know this is a safe place. This is a coaching place. This is a moment of growth. So adaptability is that it's a lot of work. It's a lot of give, push and pull. Maintenance is where we're maintaining relationships. We're maintaining things that are going on in our lives. So now some of the things that they're experiencing, we might vicariously be experiencing. So the maintenance is not only for the student, but for myself. Making sure self-care is very real, making sure I'm taking a break, making sure I'm supportive for the student and I'm there for the family. Just 2 weeks ago, my student had a court date and I showed up. Why? Because it's not my job, and because I want them to know, right, wrong, or indifferent, I'm there for you. I'm there to support you, and I'm going to continue to be there. Maintenance is challenging.
Not to rush you, but we have about 3 more minutes on the clock.
Perfect. Let's wrap it up. Is that okay?
Thank you.
Enhancing the student. How do we project them to the next level? How do we encourage them? OUSD is compiled of 48,000 students. Let's just break down the high school population because that's all I work with. High school is compiled of 13,000 students. It's about 14,000 students. The dropout rate in OUSD as of 2016, 2017 was 6%. Why am I so passionate? Because that number is way too high. Although it is descending, I cannot live or deal with 870 students dropping out every year. That is too many students quitting because we don't have common goals. We don't have common communication, which equals to not having community. So whatever instruction or standards we're trying to teach, we have to understand that they don't care what you know until they know that you care. And my work in OUSD is stamped through the engagement enhancement model. I've been in this work for 6 years, and I know that these students, if cared about, if we build that culture of care, took a chance on them, and did something different than the normal, we will have students of amazing power. We will have students that will change entire populations because they've dealt with already, as young adults, so much adversity. So I'm here to say, as we invest in education, whether it's time, resources, or common knowledge, please understand that urban education can use important adults as you guys to really just take a chance on young adults that have made mistakes like myself. I went to college on a basketball scholarship, San Jose State. I lost that scholarship my sophomore year. In 2014, I finished my bachelor's. In 2017 in December, I will finish my master's. And that is because people have taken a chance on me to believe in me when I didn't believe in myself. It took me 14 years to finish something I wanted to do. My kids, they might not have a timeline. My students, they might not have that long-term vision, but lifelong learners are amongst all of us. And I just want to thank you guys for just listening to my passion. Hey, I appreciate you, Andrew, for just granting me this moment. I get so excited that sometimes I lose track of time. But thank you, guys. Thank you, Chris, Monique, and Cecilia, and Raquel. Am I saying it right? Raquel? Raquel?
Yeah.
And just appreciate you guys for having me on.
Great. Thank you, Jarrell. So now we'll move into the Q&A portion of our little session. And I see Chris has a hand.
Okay, this might be a bit off the wall, but knowing what you know now, if you could go back and talk to your 16-year-old self, what would you say to yourself?
No, can I just repeat it because it's kind of going out? You said knowing what you know now and talking to a 16-year-old student?
No, if you could go back and talk to yourself when you were 16.
Myself. Okay.
Like today, your head right now, with all the knowledge and everything you've been through, what would you say to your 16-year-old self?
I think it's short and sweet. Fall in love with the process over the product. The product is always going to change, but the process is what you will enjoy. The process is the highs and the lows, the challenges, the outcomes, the disappointments. The outcomes or the product might be, I was a basketball player, so excuse me, but the Golden State Warriors, we are amazing, state championships. But what they can't take away from them is 73-9. Going through that stages of reforming and rebuilding the identity of the Warriors. And for me, failure is a part of that process. Quitting is a part of that process, but you got to get back up. And what I've learned now is, hey, Jarrell, it's okay. You're giving up on that one thing, but don't quit the battle. I need you to fall in love with this process because it's going to grow you to the man that you want to be.
Good, thank you. Actually, Sir Winston Churchill said it best. Never give up.
Yes.
Thank you.
No, thank you. Thank you.
Cool. Cecilia, yes.
Okay, of course, the grant writer in me. Really, I'm a projects person, and I have a position in the Rotary world in a group called the Cadre of Technical Advisors in economic and community development. Mm-hmm. It's kind of my specialty, and we actually had a Rotary scholar who has spoken to this club before, who did her master's work in Honduras, which is, extreme poverty in the middle of nowhere in rural Honduras. And when she arrived there to work on her studies, she discovered that in this village, there was a one classroom school. Most of the students did not go beyond the second grade, and especially the girls. She also noticed that the girls who were a little older would sit outside the classroom listening to what was being taught, and she realized that they wanted the opportunity to learn. So over time, it's been since 2010 or 2011, they've added classrooms built by the villagers themselves, some of that with Rotary Foundation money, and they now, last year, graduated their first high school class, because the government will provide the teacher if the village or community provides the school. But in addition to that, the deal between her and the young people was that, I'm going to find a way to give you a learning environment, but you have to give back to your community. And so now, many years down the road, the students in that school are teaching the adults in the community, they're teaching them how to read and write, because it's a little different environment than ours, obviously, but the parents of these children don't know how to read and write, but they value education. Yes. She also got these students to do things like start working with the elderly and going and visiting them and doing things for them and helping them out whenever possible. Mm-hmm. They've also planted community gardens, and now they actually have launched a fair trade coffee business, and they're exporting coffee to the U.S. And all of this is exactly tied to what you're talking about. And so, Andrew, I'm hoping perhaps we can get Carol and Katya, is Gerald, right?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. And Katya Gomez together, at least to talk about what was successful and what she did, because I think there are some parallels that would be really helpful for you. And I mean, I hope you're not just a one-man show in your school. I hope the other staff are supporting you.
It's a growing process. You know, we have about 90 staff on 90 members on faculty, and some are new to Oakland and learning the culture, the climate, how students operate. You know, what goes on in Oakland is a little unique in comparisons to the Bay Area. You know, we're so close in proximity, but so different in culture.
Yes.
And that's just getting adapted to that culture and understanding how the ins and outs of it works is challenging for some of our new teachers, but I'm a resource for them to communicate with parents, to advocate for the student, and just ensure that the student's needs are being met.
Thank you.
No, thank you.
So I'm really glad that you mentioned that you're a resource for all the new teachers, because I think they're definitely better for it. For any educator who might be working with students who don't have basic needs met at home, what kind of like quick tips or techniques that you could kind of share with them?
You know, Andrew and Rotary Club, I can only speak from experience. And if I have enough time, I can give you an example. What I really focused on is using my 5 senses. You know, when I'm with a student and if something doesn't smell right, then I really take that as, okay, let me back up. Can I just give you the example and then I can tell you the technique that I use? In first year in this program, or in my scope of work, this was about 5 years ago. I had a student that was referenced to me. Student was not coming to school. Student was not engaged and was in the process of being condemned a truant and a dropout. My job was to go to the home. Went to the student's home, contacted several times. Of course, families aren't so engaging with people coming to their home. That's their safe space. But was able to engage mom several times through the phone. I walked into the house, automatically noticed drugs on the table. Mom was obviously engaged in drug behavior. And walking to the student's room, because she pointed it out to me, the student didn't have a doorknob, but a chain that was slipped through a hole in the door and a hole in the wall. And it was this chain to the room. And so when I knocked on the door and he came out with me, the first thing I noticed was his appearance. Something doesn't look right. He's not taking care of himself. You know, kind of we fill out this profile in our head. And I was just going through that profile fill out. Okay, maybe he's depressed. Maybe there's something bothering him. And then as we're walking outside, because I told him, let's just go for a walk. I don't have no expectations. I'm not going to take you nowhere. So we went for a walk, and the smell is what now triggered me. His hygiene wasn't the best. So in conversations, we were, you know, this is over a 1.5 year process. This young man was actually able to come to school. A 17-year-old young man had to do his sophomore year. Me and the principal myself agreed to have this as a special case. And through the course of building this relationship with the family, you know, with the student, I am very proud. I am so proud to sit here and say that not only did the student start attending school, the student was able to finish Merritt College just 2 years ago. No, just last June, which was a year ago. And not only that, he just was accepted to Cal State East Bay, which for me, I just point that out because I don't know if it's a magic tool ingredient, but sometimes our 5 senses in our gut give us enough inclination to say, you know what, maybe I need to dive a little deeper. Maybe I need to ask more engaging questions, or understand that I cannot have the student where I want him to be and learning these classroom targets or learning targets, but I need to go meet him or her where she's at. So what do I use? As bland as it is, Andrew, I just use my 5 senses. And sometimes my gut just gives me an inclination to go a little deeper. Hopefully that helps.
No, that was great. Thank you. Raquel, Monique, do you have any thoughts or comments or questions?
No, I think it's actually thanks for this meeting. It's really interesting what you're doing. I'm a Mexican and I live in Central America quite a while. So it's the program that you're running is actually what Cecilia told you. It will work a lot in those kind of countries.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you can make the connection, it would be great.
Yes. Yeah, and that's the plan. You know, just to give you a little bit of detail, Raquel, I don't want to paint the whole school district with one stroke of a brush, but understand that I break the school down into 3 different tiers. So I really call it the 80-15-5 rule. 80% of the students want to be on campus. 15% of the students are on the fence about what they want to do. So those are more or less your followers. For lack of better terms, the bottom 5% is what we classify as incorrigible and the ones we tend to give up on the fastest. And what I'm saying is, if we win over that 5%, the bottom 5%, we can win the actual 20% of the student population. And now we have a climate and culture that's built for students to commit to lifelong learning. I'm so passionate about the work, you know, that Cecilia shared with me over in Honduras. And, you know, you guys are doing amazing works, particularly in your scope of field. But Monique, to go get your doctorate and encourage me to say, you know what, this is something I have to do. I had a dream as a kid that I was going to make it to the NBA, but that dream did not become a reality. But to sit here and be on the live telecast with a Dr. Monique is more encouraging to now chase that profession again, saying, you know what, Jarrell, you didn't make your professional appearance in the NBA, but here's your chance to talk to somebody that's in the process, and more importantly, take a chance on yourself to do it. So yes, thank you guys, and let's just continue to take chances on our students.
Wonderful.
Well, Jarrell, I will tell you, it took me 8 years to get through my doctoral program. But, you know, I've had a lot of people say, oh, I've always wanted to do that, or, oh, I'd like to be a librarian. Hey, and no matter what age they are, I tell them it's never too late. You can always do this. So with the passion that you have for learning, with the passion that you have for learning, man, I think that what you're working on would serve you well in research, and what you're working on would be, you know, very helpful to many people. And, you know, as somebody who lives in Richmond, where the same stories about school kids, the same stories about the community, which I agree are not, I say, hey, it's not true. You got to come to Richmond. You got to go to Oakland and see what it's like. You know, I really appreciate what you're doing. I encourage it. The question that I have is, you know, frequently these kids who are in that 5% or maybe even more in that 15%, they often come to public libraries as adults or older young adults because they didn't get their GED, because they didn't have something else. And one of the things that, like in Richmond, we used to do was give them an eye exam, give them basic health screenings. And a lot of times we would find out that what they really needed were a pair of glasses and some help for, you know, some mild learning disability. And it never got caught in school. And I'm wondering, has that improved any? Have they, do you know, is that something that the school districts are doing more of in terms of paying attention to those basic needs that really then can affect your ability to learn?
Yes, Dr. Monique. Well, is it okay if I call you Dr. Monique? Yeah. Okay, perfect. what schools are doing, or what we're starting to do, is we're making the transition to community schools, and we are having services expedited in. Meaning, we have a wellness center on campus, and through the wellness center, they can access multi-layered resources. But there's a disconnect between the wellness center and the student population, because the turnover rate in the wellness center, we get a lot of interns. So when they start to build up a relationship with the intern and then find out that intern's not coming back next year, a lot of students are not why do I need to go talk to somebody, or why do I need to go get my eyes checked when they're just going to leave me anyway? And it's like, wow, this is so powerful and so true. It's no fault to anyone, but I think we have to find a better way, we being the faculty at within the public schools, find a better way to find consistency, and encourage, you know what, let's go take the eye exam, let's get our teeth checked, let's find out what our basic needs are and if they're met. And some of the times, I don't want to say all of the times, but Dr. Monique, sometimes they don't do it because it's out of fear. Maybe I don't want to know if I have a cavity. Maybe I don't know how to go get a checkup. And it's a lot of communication that I have with families in my department when they come to me. After we get through the stages of forming, the stages of development, of team development, and they're able to speak very uncandid to me, families are afraid of technology. And what they do is they run from it versus asking questions to learn about it. So I think to kind of answer the question is, I think we're at that point where we're running from it and creating excuses to not learn about it versus, you know what, I'm going to ask Dr. Monique what it's like. Tell me how to break down a library and how it can be not so intimidating for me. I see a lot of books, but I don't know where to start. And that's something as a community, the Oakland community, we have to get past that prideful stage and being able to commit to lifelong learning.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Jarrell, do you have any final thoughts to send us off with?
Final thoughts. As I speak to a group of professionals, I thank you guys. I know Andrew had to regulate me because I was approaching that time limit, but I just want you to know my passion for students, my passion for learning. And I'm a firm believer, you guys, that if we build a culture of care so deep, so passionate, and so powerful that students fall in love with the process over product, we will see and encourage a lot more citizens that will take advantage of what's to be had in our communities. If you guys get a chance, I know we said you're going to Toronto, but Oakland should be next on the list because it's a beautiful city. And I just wanted to put my plug out there for Oakland. So hopefully you enjoy your time in Toronto, but Oakland's beautiful also. Don't forget about us. They like to call us what do they say? The little sister to San Francisco. But I don't want you to forget about Oakland. Thank you guys for having me.
Thank you, Jarrell. Members, remember to sign in, and members and guests, be sure to leave a comment at the bottom with the disc is below. But thank you, Jarrell, and thank you everybody here, and see you guys next week.